Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Tips and Tricks series on MotoGP 21. In today's episode we will have my secret weapon, very mystic, is the rear brake. I use the rear brake a lot more than just rear braking and using it under heavy braking. I use it in change of directions, corner entry, mid-corner, corner exit, and a lot to do with anti-wheelie. Now you'll see here in a second I'll have a few clips of Jack Miller at Austria first, and then I'll have a few of Portimao rear brake. I actually overheat the rear brake at both these tracks, even with the highest one on. It's just I use it so much it gets a bit red. You'll probably see it in a few of the clips. But I use it just to turn the bike. I use it to take the weight off the front, so I have a much better trail braking ability. I can push the front more by using the rear brake to take weight off it, so that I'm not kind of risking as much on the front. It is incredible for corner exit because anti-wheelie, what it does is it cuts power to bring the front wheel down. If you don't have to use anti-wheelie, if the anti-wheelie isn't cutting in, like so, if you're not cutting power and you're using a small bit of rear brake, you're just holding the bike back ever so slightly, but you're not cutting power, so the power is still there, so you're still going to push forward ever so fast. But if everyone's had anti-wheelie, especially when you come into Craig Jones, just before you go down into Craig Jones corner in Portimao, you come over that brow of the hill, the front comes up, and the bike just completely cuts power and it goes nowhere. If you can get good with using the rear brake, you can actually push through that and you don't get that cut of power where the bike kind of sits on the back wheel for a second waiting for it to kind of come back down to earth. It keeps pushing. You'll see a lot in these clips that the rear brake, I keep modulating the rear brake on and off. We will be using OBS today, so you will see my controller inputs. And just a heads up, actually, my rear brake is RB, so you'll see me clicking it on and off RB a lot. So I will be talking over it, so I'll explain again in a second when you see it. But it is so handy. If you can learn to use the rear brake at a high level, you will improve in every condition. In overall lap time, you'll improve in race trim, you'll just improve ever. It's such a handy tool, and some people don't use it. Believe it or not, years ago, back on MotoGP 15, 16, 17, I never actually used the rear brake. I just used the front brake. I remember thinking that if you brake with the rear brake on its own on the older games, it would slow the bike down. But if you brake with the front brake and the rear brake, there's no benefit of the rear brake, so you might as well not use it because it's an extra button to press. And it's an extra. It actually kind of moved the rear end about a bit too much for me liking. So I actually learned to ride just with the front brake, and that was where I was strongest. But anyway, enough chit chatter. Let's get over to the footage. So here we are in the braking. Just a quick note of what rear brake works best. Now you'll see we have one 7-inch, one 8-inch, both made of steel, and they're very similar. So really there's not much difference. I've used both of them. I don't notice a massive difference, but I always go for this one brake disc with the 8-inch because it just takes slightly longer to heat up. Now it does take longer to cool down, but if it doesn't overheat as much, it won't need to cool down as much, is my thinking behind it. With this one, it tends to get hot very fast and it cools down fair enough, but it still seems to heat up a bit too much for me, and I use it so much at this track at Austria that 8 is nearly the one I always run. I don't actually ever run 7. I just don't need it. Even in wet conditions I'll always run the 8. It never actually goes cold. I notice it's always handy. So just going to jump on track now and show off just a few things to watch out for. Now this footage here isn't in OBS. You'll see in a second when I'll be talking over the other clips, you'll have my controller inputs on screen. But you'll see here now, what you need to look out for is, look in the bottom right of the screen, you'll see what is known as the heads up display, or my rev counter and all that. You can see 3 bars. I've explained this in other videos, so I'm just going to hold the rear brake. You see on, off, on, off. That's the rear brake. That's my front. Oh no, I have to go forward to use. That's the front brake. That's the throttle. So I'm half on throttle, half on brake there now. Now I'm fully on the rear brake. So keep an eye on how much this bar here that I'm flicking up and down is going on and off in the other clips. Now, of course, you'll have my control inputs to see as well, but it's good just to see how hard and how long I hold for. This is a very good, because it isn't instant. It has to fill the bar before it's fully on the brake. So a lot of times I'll kind of flick it like this. You'll see I'll only ever go to about 50% rear brake. But now let's jump over to the OBS clips. Right, here we are coming into turn 1. Now just focus on the controller on the left side of the screen. You'll see the white button in the top right corner, RB. That is my rear brake, as I mentioned earlier. You'll see just on exit. Now I'm just starting to really pick up a lot of rear brake to just bring the front wheel back down. You can see all the way up to 130 miles an hour. I'm actually on and off the rear brake to manage the wheelies. Coming into what they know as turn 3, this is turn 2 here. So I come through turn 2, and when I brake, I keep the bike in a very straight line to improve braking performance. And you can see a lot of rear brake, but as the bike changes direction over, I stop, because if you brake while changing direction so heavy like this, you'll end up with the rear end coming around. You'll see again here, just on exit, a lot of rear brake just to keep the wheelie down. But as I was mentioning, in changing direction like that, it'll just make the bike rotate too much onto the headstock and it will push you wide. This one here is very good. You can see very little front brake, a lot of rear brake just to get the bike to turn in mid corner, then pick up the throttle nice and early, grabs a handful of rear brake just to minimize the wheelie and help the bike change direction, and we just drifted through turn 8 and now into the final corner. Once again, it's very bumpy, and if you take a lot of front brake here, too much front brake, the rear end snaps and you actually run on. So you can see, look, very little front brake and a lot of rear brake. The bike wants to move around. We still nicely hit just about an apex, and you'll see again into the final corner. Just here, like, just wants to wheelie on the bumps again. Just small bit of rear brake again on the curbs, and into the last corner we come. So up to the line, then we go, and a lot of rear brake once again. There's so much rear brake used around this track. But here now we have a full lap at full speed to see what it looks like in actual real time. So again, into turn 1, the bike jumps around a lot on and off the rear brake. As soon as the bike is picked up, you can see we actually just run it out to the outside curb, using a bit of rear brake to stabilize the wheelie on exit of all the corners. Same up again here now. You'll see that I'll brake hard when the bike's leaned over. As I change direction, I'll leave off a touch, just start to modulate it. Then on tip in again, I'll lose a lot of brake, and as soon as I pick up the bike on throttle, you can see the front wheel just hovers over the ground, and that means you're not using anti-wheelie as much, which means you're not cutting power, you're getting better drive. Same down here, a lot of rear brake. Bike change direction, you just want to leave off the brake, leave the bike settle, pick up a lot of it on mid corner just to get the bike to turn. Crucial on this game. This corner here now especially, you can see rear brake as the bike is upright to kind of drift it into this corner. Again, you don't want to go from left to right with the rear brake on, because the rear will just start to pivot around when you change direction. Again, in here you'll see the change of direction, so grabs a handful of rear brake there and keeps the front wheel down and just pivots the bike in nicely into the corner. Same here again now, not as much front brake, a lot of rear brake, gets the bike in nicely. Bike wants to wheelie there, nice bit of rear brake into the last corner, come touch wide, up the throttle we go, and into the final straight. Now here we are at Portugal. Now there's a little hill here up into the start finish straight. Just as we come over this, the bike does want to wheelie, so I just modulate the rear brake just there, just to keep the front end down. Flat all the way then down into turn 1. And you'll notice I go to the right side of the track and just look how much rear brake I use into turn 1. So again, very little front brake as you go down the dip, off the front brake, and then hard when the bike is kind of settled. And once again, using so much rear brake. I did get it wide there, but the concept is still the same. So this is a bit of a longer clip here because I have about half a lap. So getting through here, just as the bike gets set up, you want to get hard on the front brake here, and then lots of rear brake. And you can see as we get to the middle of the corner, look how much rear brake just to get the rear of the bike to slide around, so I can get the bike turned mid corner. Again, just on to change direction, a small bit of rear brake for stability. Then on exit this corner, because it's going up a hill, the rear likes to spin. You just want to keep the front down with a small bit of rear brake. And you can see, look, just flicking on and off just to maintain forward motion. You can see here now again, just using the rear of the bike to get slightly wide so that the bike is made into a V into the corner. You can see just as we get towards the apex of the corner, a lot of rear brake is applied. Coming out of here, the tarmac changes just there. You see I use the rear brake to stop from spinning as much. Then up through here, as the change of direction, a bit of rear brake will be used in just a second. You can see just so we get the bike upright, rear brake just to get the back of the bike to step out so we have wheels better in line for this corner. And now we have the full lap of Portimao. So you can see now as you come over the rise, we'll just grab a handful of rear brake just to keep the front end down. If the front wheel comes up, anti-wheelie comes in, kicks off a bit of power, and you lose your drive. So you can see, look how much rear brake we use across the hill. This time we actually make turn 1 much better. pick the bike up into second gear, flat through turn 2, and then right out to the curb. Lots of rear brake. You'll see on just there, you can see just bringing the bike around. And once again here, didn't actually use the rear brake that time, change direction. On exit, just flick of the rear brake just to keep that front wheel down. Then up here, braking at the Marshall post. Back 2 gears, drifting and then making a really deep V at this corner. Again, once we crossed the bit of tarmac there, that changes a bit of rear brake. You'll see here now again, change direction, dab of rear brake. But if you hit front brake there, the bike will have a weight transfer forward and that will throw the bike off. Now through here, you'll see I pick up the rear brake so early. You can see it's wheeling already, so we just dropped small bit of throttle, lots of rear brake. I actually overheat the brake, that's how much rear brake I'm using. Getting up there, you just want the rear end a bit loose so the bike actually wants to turn in. So lots of rear brake again, grabbing loads just to get the bike turned into the corner. Again, once the wheelie there, more rear brake. And in here, same again, you just want the bike to turn in mid corner using so much rear brake. Then using rear brake again on exit, just so we change direction here to keep the front end in. You can see how much the bike turns in when you use rear brake. And out to the final corner we come, drifting the bike over here. Obviously no need for rear brake here, this is a pretty fast corner. And you just dab it again as you come over the brow of this hill here, just to keep the front end down so you can power all the way up to the line. Right then, I hope you have enjoyed episode 14 of the tips and tricks series. The rear brake really is a special tool if you can master it on this game. It can help in all aspects as I've shown in this video. And yeah, any questions, please comment down below. It will take time. You'll find at the start you'll probably try to use it too much and you'll end up getting the bike moving. You'll see a lot of the scenarios if you watch it back where you say you're changing direction, you need to leave off the rear brake. If you just get the timing wrong, the bike will go completely sideways and you'll just completely mess up your line. So play around with it in time trial before doing it in race and online, because it's something that's taken me, I'd say, 3 years to probably get to the level where it was. Obviously, like I said at the start of the video, I didn't use it years ago, just didn't have any interest in it, just didn't work for me. So when I think it would have been MotoGP 18, I think the rear brake became very strong in that, whereas if you weren't braking without it, you were losing time. So I had to relearn it then with the Ride games, and now the current few MotoGP games on the Unreal Engine, the rear brake is a very, very important tool, so you have to be able to use it. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content. If we can hit 50 likes on this video, I will have another episode 15 out on a tip and trick series that will help across any racing game on a controller. So 50 likes is the target. Soon as, if we could hit 50, we'll have that up. I already have it edited and recorded, so ready to upload. I just need to fit it into the schedule. But anyway, thank you all again for watching. I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye, and thanks for watching.